Hello and welcome to Genre Blender. I'm Kris and I'm joined by Ryan today. And today we are talking about Stephen King. And we have a relative newbie to Stephen King with Ryan and myself, who is, I was going to say more well read, but I've just checked this dude's bibliography and I've read less than half now. I was well read 15 years ago.
Still a lot of books though.
Every year, this bugger brings out two or three books, and I just
Yeah.
cannot keep up with the
Yeah.
release schedule that he has. So, who's Stephen King? Stephen King is a horror author who's been around for a very, very long time. He's sort of got his name, I would say, I'm gonna go with late 70s through the through to the 90s, and then because he had such a big fan base, we're seeing a lot more readers being drawn to his work. He is proclaimed as the king of horror across the sphere. Now, do I agree with that necessarily? Not so much anymore. When I first started reading King, and he was the only like horror author that I was reading, yeah, potentially, because he was the only one out there. But since I've been reading a lot more, I found many, many more authors who I would say maybe come up to par in different ways. But King does do a lot of things that are very specific to him, and I think we'll get into that as we, talk through the episode today. So Stephen King, been around for a very long time. I think he's in his late 70s, I want to say, and he publishes many, many books per year. I've got a full shelf. You can't see them in this room, but out in a living room, I have basically a full bookshelf full of Stephen King's books. I think he's up to somewhere close to 80 books.
I didn't even count them. I have a chronological list because we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's a lot.
I need to look it
I'm
up.
gonna guess.
I need to look it up right now.
When you see a list of chronological books from an author, and there's multiple listings from the same year over and over and over again, I don't think I've ever seen that with any other author. I think he's just so
He is
prolific at this point.
in a league of his own. No one's giving me a number, but he is 78.
There you go.
September 21st, 1947. So he's been around for a long time. Okay, Wikipedia says 65. I have a feeling it's more than that, though.
I think it's more than that now.
That must be more than that now. Don't go to Wikipedia or AI as your sources of information. Full disclaimer.
Don't do what we do, folks.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's jump into the topic today. I'm kind of curious because you started a author project for Stephen King, which is sort of how this topic came about. You've read a couple now. You just finished arguably the biggest book that he has out, and we'll get to that in a minute. But what drew you to Stephen King? Because I think my answer to this is different.
Look, to be honest, for many, many years, like the reason the author project started in the first place is because for many years I refused to read a Stephen King book. I was just like, he's
Why?
too popular.
Why? Okay, all
too,
right,
he's
fair
too
enough.
popular. Like too many people. Like, why would I read that when I can read all these other books? And like as a bit of a literature nerd, like I was like, there's lots of other things I could read instead of Stephen King. But I came to that conclusion, and I was young and stupid from like ignorance, really, because I'd never read one. So how could I judge what a Stephen King book was like? So when you offered Salem's Lot, which was the first one that I read, to me to read, I was like, yeah, cool, let's give it a try. And then there we go. Case in point, that is the very book that I read. That's perfect. Nice, slightly beat up paperback, which is our preference.
Love a beat up paperback.
Yeah,
It can
kind
be
of
a
goes well
whole
with
episode
Stephen.
on beat up.
Definitely goes well with the whole vibe as well.
Yeah.
So I read that one, which is his second published book. And actually, I lie. I have read one other book from Stephen King before that, back in like 2009 or something, which was his on writing nonfiction, how to write book. So I have read that one. I don't really count that one in this project, but anyway, I've read that. But yeah, Salem's Lot was like the second one. And then I thought, like, you know what? I have this amazing opportunity to kind of read his entire work, his entire body of work, basically, from the very beginning in chronological order. So I was just like, what other author do I really get that opportunity to do that with so many books and see the change in writing over the years? So I was just like, you know what? Cool, let's just go ahead and do that. And having read the second book, now I can, go ahead and read the rest. So I did actually skip Carrie, so I will eventually come back to this one.
A great addition.
Yeah, I know.
That's
It's the 50th,
beautiful.
I think.
Yeah.
I had to. I couldn't resist, and because obviously I'll get around to it at some point. I think that they're releasing others of this. I think Salem's Lot just came out, or I
don't need to know that. My shelves
No,
are
you don't.
already inundated.
No one needs to know.
Books I haven't
No.
read.
So I'll come back to this one. I'll probably read this one either one October, or possibly at the very end after I've read everything else. Maybe we'll do it that way. But yeah, that's kind of that was my thought process, and I've been reading them all up until I just read The Stand. So this giant book, which I have a video coming out on later this month.
I have a prop here. We've got different editions of
Oh, there you go. That's nice. Yeah, I really like these editions, and
flop.
the reason is yeah,
Yeah, the
the
flop.
flop. Yeah,
When
exactly.
it's a 1,300-page book, you want the flop.
You want the flop. It's important, people. So I've just finished that, and then yeah, I've got the next few coming up. So yeah, we'll talk about those in a minute. So yeah, that was kind of my reasoning for doing the project.
I came to Stephen King a very different way, and I think I have talked about this on our previous like podcast episodes before. And I had sort of grown out of the books that I was reading. I think I was very early into high school, if not the last year of primary school. I was around 12 or 13. I was like, I'm done. I'm done with kids' books and I need something else. So I like ventured under our old Queenslander house full of dirt and boxes of shit. And there was just boxes and boxes of books in there. And my dad had, which I've stolen and brought to Perth, had many boxes of Stephen King books. So I ended up picking up Misery, which you have read. This is still my favorite Stephen King book, and I don't know whether that's a nostalgia thing. I love the character of what's her face?
I haven't read yet, so
Oh, you haven't read this one?
spoilers. No, I haven't read it. It's
Okay,
coming up.
this is one of my favorites. What's her name? I say one of my favorites. I know Kathy Bates played her in the film adaptation, and one of my favorite adaptations of Stephen King as
Any
well.
Wilkes?
Annie Wilkes, that's her.
There you
Batshit.
Yeah.
But so good. This book still has one of the most horrific scenes I've ever read in it.
Yeah, you said that to me, and I was just like, I'm sold. I can't wait to get to that
Which
one.
did not make it into the movie. A
Yeah,
very good reason, but you'll get there in the book. Anyway, I digress. So I picked this one up, and then my dad like caught me reading it. And he's like, I don't care that you've gone and stolen books because you could be doing much worse things with your life, but maybe not yet for your age
maybe
range.
not that one.
And then, and I
Yeah.
was like, no, stuff you, because I'd already stolen the books and brought them into my room. But he then suggested that I read his first fantasy book, which is geared to a younger audience called Eyes of the Dragon. And I did like that one. It gets a lot of flack, but I did enjoy it. Again, that could be the age range that I was reading that book. But I was like, no, it's a bit softer. than old whatever happened in this book,
You
which I
started
won't
with the
spoil.
hardcore
I
one.
did,
Yeah.
and then it sort of grew from there. So I read a lot of Stephen King throughout sort of high school and early uni, and then that's where I stopped. I haven't really read a lot of modern Stephen King, post sort of like 2000. I read one and a couple of the crime ones, which we'll get to. But yeah, that's how my journey started with him. So you have done this project for a little while now, and you read The Stand quite recently. You've also delved into some of the short stories from the pen name, right? Richard Buckman.
Yeah. So I read Rage,
Mm.
and because that one's part of the Bachman books, which you own, I think.
I don't think you can buy
And
it by itself anymore, can you? You have to get the Buckman books to get it.
yes, which I think there's one missing. So I think Rage is actually not in there, which is why your version has it, but the newer versions don't. And there's some reasons why, because it's like it deals with some some issues, some things. But I read that and I quite enjoyed that story. I wasn't expecting much from it at all, so I was pleasantly surprised. And then I've also read Night Shift, which is his first collection of short stories, and those were fun. They were just like there's not much
I
to
haven't
them,
read
but
that
they're
one
good.
yet.
Yeah,
I
I mean they're very exactly what you would expect them to be.
I got burnt by Stephen King short stories. Now, Night Shift was written obviously a long, long time ago, but I read Full Dark No Stars last year, and it was a collection of novellas, and there was 4 novellas in it. I didn't like any of them.
Oh wow,
So I was like,
swing and a miss.
maybe not short stories for me, but I will go back and read some of those the collections, because I think they are shorter stories. They're not novellas that are in there. So how have you found King so far? Because you've read a few books now. Have you found any recurring themes in the books? Because that is something that I picked out quite quickly, was a recurring themes.
Definitely, yeah, and I think we've talked about this a lot just off camera and stuff. But like, I don't know, he's a very formulaic writer to me. Like now that I've read enough, and these are all, by the way, early books that I've read, so it could be that he changes.
He does get a
completely.
little bit more experimental, but I mean the formula worked for him, right? And in the
Yeah.
in the market that he was writing for, in the 80s and the 90s, it worked. He was selling, so why would he change it if he was selling
Exactly.
those books?
Yeah. He knows how to write a story, like from beginning to middle to end. Like he knows what makes a story.
Well,
And
ending's questionable, but
well, we'll come back to that. This is true. But like he knows what makes you want to keep turning the pages to devour a story because you just want to know what happens, right? That's the kind of writer that he is. And he's just a master of storytelling in that way. And I think a master of characters as well. I think he writes characters one of the best that I've ever read, just in terms of just like they feel real. They feel like real people. So, can't fault him for that.
what I like about his characters, and I'm not a character-driven reader normally. When I say that, I mean in a fantasy-esque setting or a sci-fi-esque setting. I want more world. When you're talking about literary, I think it's very important to have your characters be somewhat relatable. And a lot of the characters that Stephen King writes are broken in some way. They are flawed in some way. And he does do humanity exceptionally well. Because no human is pure, no human is 100% evil. There is always this, we are a makeup of our experiences, we are a makeup of the things that are in our lives that shape us and our past and whatnot. And I think he captures that really, really well with his characters, so that when you read it, you can often grasp little bits and pieces from the people that you're reading about and be able to relate that to your own experiences in some way. Um,
Yep, definitely. And he does dialogue exceptionally well, accents really well, and children. He writes children really well as well. He knows how to. Well, look, I know you're gonna pick out it, right?
I sure am. Now, it, to be, bar one scene, this is one of my favorite Stephen King books, but he does some questionable shit with children, which I'm not
Go on.
sure. Like,
Yes.
that scene nearly made many people, not just myself, go, I don't
Yeah.
know
Not
if
sure.
that's for
Yeah.
me. There is also a scene that I've recently heard criticized in one of the Dark Tower books, and I don't remember it, but I did read the Dark Tower when I was quite young. So maybe because I was of the age reading it that the character was, that it didn't feel off to me.
Yeah.
But like, I am interested in rereading that series, so it'd be interesting to see if I have the same issues with it this time around.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm curious to see like if my opinion on that will change as I start
Mm.
reading some more of these because I haven't read it for for context. Like I've not read it
It
yet.
look,
I've seen
it
the
is the
movie.
big one.
Yeah.
So
Well, is it actually? It's not as long as The Stand, is it? No.
no, I
So I don't feel
so
so bad now.
this is actually like one of my favorite storytelling styles as well. And like, I'd love to write a book one day, not horror, but in a similar fashion. And I'm working on one in the back of my brain, which took me 10 years to write. But my favorite thing about this is it's split into two parts. One part
Yeah.
is, the children going through the horrific, if you've seen the movie, you sort of know. And the
Yeah.
second part is them, however many years later, I think it's 27 years later, as adults. And I was like, that's cool. Like, I love seeing it.
Yeah.
And it was the only place I'd ever seen it before.
Yeah, yeah, cool. He was probably one of the first to do it and for it to be really
Mm.
well known. But yeah, it's a storytelling kind of method, I suppose, that I'm not usually typically in love with, but I'm curious to see how I like it. Um, the other thing I just wanted to mention is like he does suspense really well as well. So like where we might decide that maybe he's not the king of horror in terms of just like a horror story, when it comes to sort of like suspense and that slow build, I think he does that quite well, at least from my experience.
He does do the slow build very well. It's the payoff that isn't there sometimes. But like, you
Yes.
build and you build and you build and you're like, all right, I'm ready for this thing. And like, anyway, I will
Yeah.
I I will concede that he does slice of life incredibly well. He builds his characters up incredibly well. He builds his world up very well. When you're talking about a literary horror book, your world is most of the time Maine or a town, and that town often feels very lived in,
Yeah.
and you can feel what it's like walking down the streets. You know who you're going to run into in the local grocery store. You know what things look like from the way that he describes it. But none of it is overly complex, which I think is quite a signature writing style of his, is he doesn't try to really bog you down. But at the same time, everything feels very lived in, which is, I appreciate and I love that as a world building driven reader. Even if I'm in one town, if I can see the town, I can smell the town. Like, it's really something special and unique that he can do quite well within this subgenre. I also wanted to talk very briefly, because you are a new reader to Stephen King, is the multiverse. So if you do go down the route of the Dark Tower, you are in for a smorgasbord of Easter eggs, which is fantastic. And I didn't really know about the multiverse, 10 years into my reading experience with Stephen King. But now that I'm reading some of the older works, and I hope to read some of the newer works sometime in my life before I perish, I'm sure there'll be more little bits and pieces that I can pick out from them. But one of the major ones I won't tell you. You're going to read it. Well, if you don't read it, tell
Yeah,
me no, and I'll tell you then.
I'll read it. We'll do another episode down the track, but it might be a while. So just FYI.
In the Dark Tower in publication order, I think is like several spans of years.
Yeah, it's actually not too far away because I've basically got at this point, I've got the next three on my list or the list, I suppose. Which are so there's the Long Walk, which is that's I think there's a movie being made of that one very soon as well, or it's in the works. So that's the next one, and then there's the Dead Zone and Firestarter. So these, yes, they're all matching editions because so
I was like, have I read the Dead Zone? But seeing that cover, I'm like, I love fair horror. I
Yeah.
love fairground horror.
yeah,
Okay, I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's
read
pretty
that
cool.
one with you.
yeah.
I can't remember if I've read it.
Done. But then so after that, there's a couple of others, and then there's Cujo, which
That's one you're interested in, right? Like you want to read it.
I do want to read that one.
This is one that cops a lot of flack as well. People don't like it as much.
Yeah.
I thought it was
I feel
fine.
like it's quite divisive.
I've actually been meaning to read more Stephen King for a while, but I don't know. You can only see one on my shelves behind me. I have over 400 unread books in this house. So I'm a bit spoiled for choice. Don't even get me started on the Kindle. But the couple that I have that I would like to read next, the one that's been calling me for a couple of years now is another big one, and that's Under the Dome.
Ah, yes. We
So-
made a TV show on that one, yeah.
Yeah, they did make a TV show. I think I watched, 45 minutes of it, but I don't watch a lot of TV. So I was like, eh. But I do like the literary, where it come from. So I like the idea of it. I believe this is just a town that gets put into a bubble, and they need to figure out where the bubble's coming from. And don't quote me on any of this. I don't know. I've read the blurb. There's not even a blurb on the back of this. It just says a fabulous teller of stories. So it's got an endorsement on the back. I couldn't tell you what the blurb is.
It's like Stephen King needs that as well.
Yeah, we get it. Stephen King's going to sell books, but I'm genuinely curious about, because he does do humanity so well and these extreme situations so well, how that is treated in this situation. And there's another one that has been calling to me, and I have no idea why. Literally zero idea why this one has been calling. But every time I look at the shelves, I'm like, I'm going to read that book. And this is Rose Madder. There's a cow.
Oh, yeah.
There's a cow on the front. People are turning into cows, and if you know anything about me, I do love some animal shifting. There's one book I really hated. There's only one so far that I really just didn't like at all.
Which one?
Gerald's Game.
Okay.
I hated
So
the
stay
subject
away.
matter. I was not a fan at all.
That's
But
fair.
so wherever the gunslinger is on your list, just know that book is rough.
Okay.
It is,
Okay.
for 200 pages, that is so fucking rough.
It's not too far away. It's like 6 or 7 books away. So I'll probably read it next year.
Well, good luck
So
to
we'll
you.
see. Thank you.
Did I give you my copy? I have no idea where my copy of Gunslinger is gone.
I'm probably not going to buy those ones either because I'm not sure. I'm not a fantasy reader,
not
so I'm curious. I'm curious what I think, but I probably won't buy it. I'll just I don't know, get it from the library or something, or borrow it from you.
I do need to buy Gunslinger, which would be really annoying because it's the third time I bought it. I've read it twice. I'll do that. Yeah, I would like to reread the series at some point. I want to talk about some underrated King gems that I do not hear get talked about a lot. So you hear the big ones, right? You hear Pet Sematary is fucking fantastic. It is one of the scariest books that I've ever read, and it is still to this day one of the scariest books that I've ever read. And that is creepy kids done well, because I do not like children in horror stories generally, or when they are the subject of the horror. This one did quite well. Probably one of the only ones that I've enjoyed. But there are several books that I think just don't get talked about enough of his. So we get Pet Sematary, gets talked about all the time. The Shining gets talked about all the time. Not my favorite. Gets talked about all the time. What are the other ones? It gets talked about all the time. The Stand gets talked about all the time. But I wanted to show you 3 of my favorites that I think are really worth your time, and I'm really excited for you to get to them. The first one is going to be Dolores Claiborne. Yeah, Dolores Claiborne. which Kathy Bates also starred in this one. I think she's the only actress to do two of the
Wow.
adaptations. This is basically just an inner monologue of someone who has committed a crime, and you get her reasoning behind it. I think it's first person. It's been a while since yeah, it is, since
Cool.
I read it, and it is short. You can read it in a day. So underrated. The psychological fuckery that happens in this person's mind as it leads up to this event, which you get told in like the first couple of pages. She goes, "I'm here to confess a murder," and you just get her story, and it was fantastic,
That's
and
cool. I'm
very,
down for that.
very quick.
And that's 1992, in case anyone's interested.
You can fact check. Here we go. The next one I have is The Dark Half. This is such a fun book. Probably one of my in my top five King books, and I've read roughly 30. This is the concept of an alter ego who an author kills off, but they don't want to stay dead. And it is fun. It's a fun horror.
It's like
Um,
my jam.
yeah, it's it again mindfuckery, which I think he does quite well because he's very good at the suspense side of things. Um,
That's
and
from 89.
and the other one that I love that no one talks about is Insomnia.
Yes.
And this is full of Easter eggs as well. So if you are doing the multiverse and reading it in publication order, you should get like little bits and bobs from this one. This is, I think, first contact elements in it as well, which is something I don't typically enjoy. But this is like aging protagonists. They're in like an aging community as well, which I don't know. I really enjoyed that one.
Cool. That one's 1994. So interesting. A
So
lot of 1990s around about.
you've got to read
Really.
like 50 Stephen King books a year to. Well,
Maybe next year we'll see.
we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, like I really just wanted to like, if you're a Stephen King reader and you haven't read those, like do yourself a favor. Dark Half especially is just immaculate. So good. There is a relatively recent one as well. Probably the most recent King that I've read called Revival, and that was kind of it wasn't really fairgrounds, but is a fairground element to it, which was more supernatural thriller that I quite enjoyed, and I don't think that gets talked about a lot either.
Yeah, I've not even heard of that one. That's 2014.
Yeah, it's definitely within the last. Well, I was going to say 10 years. It's
Not
2020
anymore.
now, not anymore. Not.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, there's so many on this list that I've never heard of. So when I put this list together or found the chronological list, like I was just like, I don't even know what that is. Like I'd heard of the Dark Tower books and I'd heard of obviously Pet Cemetery and It and Cujo and all of those, but like there's so many here that I have no idea what they're about, which is exciting.
isn't it? I'm just reading the notes. You got a question in here to say who else writes the most like Stephen King. Now I DNF'd or not for now this book, but the one that I hear compared to Stephen King the most is Robert McCammon. So there are two books I often hear compared to Stephen King. Swan Song is most compared to The Stand. Now I've read 200 pages of this. I think I like it. I will go back to it eventually. I just wasn't ready for another 1,000 page book. It it is similar in terms of that we're dealing with an end of world event. It's post-apocalyptic. I would say, sorry, Robert McCammon fans, Stephen King's writing is smarter in terms of how he's done the characters. Because I'm 200 pages in, I could not tell you a character's name. I don't care. Not a character-driven reader. It's not, you know, unusual for me to not
Yeah.
retain a lot of character information. But at least with The Stand, I felt a lot of what those characters were feeling. Whereas this one, I'm like, it's the end of the world, whatever.
Yeah, those characters in the stand were super memorable. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to look them up. I remember lots of details about them, their names, all of that.
And I remember like just little bits and pieces from The Stand. Look, I'm due a reread. Tried to reread it about 5 years ago. Got 700 pages in. I was like, this is a lot. So I've read
Oh,
it
well.
full time, all the way through once. But yeah,
Yeah.
the other one that gets compared to Stephen King from Robert McCammon is one called Boy's Life, which is compared to it a lot. But he's the only author that I've really heard of being compared to Stephen King. I think if you like Stephen King, you might like people like, I think it's Brian Lumley sometimes gets thrown into there as well. I don't know if that's the correct name. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, Rob McCammon is probably the only one that really comes to mind there. Now, Stephen King's son, Joe Hill, also writes in the horror thriller sphere. Some of the ones that I've read from Joe Hill, I haven't liked as much, but he does go into a little bit more of absurdist horror, which is kind of interesting. So if I was going to like recommend one to you, I'd probably go Horns, which had an adaptation with Daniel Radcliffe right after Harry Potter fame, and he was
I've
like,
seen
I,
them, not seen the movie, but I've seen like a trailer of the movie, so I know what you mean.
and he
Yeah.
was like, I want to go and do literally anything else with my life, and he picked like this weird ass horror,
Hmm.
and it was fun. Like it is
Yeah.
absurdist, but I I wouldn't say overly similar to King's writing style, but what he chooses to write about could potentially be argued that it's quite similar in terms of we're dealing with very human issues with horror elements to it. I also listened to one called Nosferatu. Nosferatu being a adaptation or depiction of Dracula, which was interesting. Not my favorite. I think I gave it about 3 stars if I'm talking about ratings. But it was creepy. It was legitimately creepy because Christmas horror, like Christmas creepy vibes, not about it. Don't
Yeah, I
love
don't know
that.
if it's my jam either.
And that
Yeah.
creeped me out. So yeah. Are you
No,
interested in trying out
I,
Hill?
I am. So Joe Hill's been on my TBR, like, well, not specific books, but just a book by Joe Hill at some point, and purely because because of who he is, I was just
Mm,
like, I'm curious.
I would probably, for you and your reading tastes, probably go Horns.
Okay. Was it funny? Like, because you don't
Yeah.
usually like funny books.
Okay. Well, let's just clarify. I don't like humor for humor's sake. I like humor in my books if it's intelligent and
Okay.
witty. And I
Yeah.
found that some of the
Same.
humor that Horns had was my style, but it wasn't a funny haha book. It was just like
Okay.
I don't love satire unless it's done extremely well. But I
Yeah.
don't mind a bit of wit and like one-liners in there.
Okay. Cool. I'm down for that because that's exactly my style as well.
We didn't really cover this, but do you think Stephen King writes exclusively horror? Being
I
titled the King
mean,
of Horror.
nah. I mean, to be honest, like none of the books that I've read are really horror at all. I would say, maybe the short story collection, clearly horror. It's like ghost stories and stuff in there. But like all of the others, I mean, Rage especially, that was like a psychological thriller. Some of the others are very psychological and kind of thriller vibes. So yeah, absolutely.
But I guess we could go into the nuance of what is horror. Because I would argue that psychological literary books can be horrific, but you're dealing with a
Oh,
very
sure.
human subject matter. So
They can be the
um,
most
they can be
horrific,
the most horrific
probably.
because it could happen. Like these things could happen, and they have happened. But yeah, that was a discussion on Stephen King. So, what are your thoughts on Stephen King? Are you a fan? Do you think he's completely overrated? Let us know in those comments down below. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Helps out a lot. Subscribe if you want to. And yeah, where else can they go, Ryan? Where can they find us?
So you can head over to genreblender.net to sign up for extra content and hang out on our Discord server. So we'll see you over there if you're interested. And until then, take care.
Yeah.
Bye.